So therefore, they allow themselves to be deluded, even if they're not malicious in their intention. And I know some of these people. They're not malicious in their intention. They're just greedy. And they believe that if we don't support this thing, that the president will take actions which will wipe out their money, their investment. But the fact of the matter is, their investment is already worthless. It's only worth the belief that it has value. You look at the figures of the money, you look at the amount of value that we are producing in the United States and in other countries, and you look at the amount of money we say we have, or the people say they have, and you realize the whole thing is a fraud. What we need to do is go to a Glass-Steagall Act, the same one that President Roosevelt put in effect in 1933. Just back to that. What that would do would take all the money, which is called money, but is not really wealth, and would put it into a separate account, for which the government itself would not be responsible. Then the money that conformed to the law, what had been the actual constitutional law, the original Constitution, and what was the law established by 1933, Glass-Steagall, that law would click into effect. Under those conditions, with the credit now released, available to the United States government, we could start an immediate recovery tomorrow morning. And if they don't know how to do it, I know how to do it.
Lyndon LaRouche, you predicted all this. We're going to break. We're going to come back and get into solutions, and then some phone calls. But first, as we go to break here, why are you saying this is going to cause economic collapse very quickly? What is the time frame of the accelerating collapse if they don't reverse this?
The time is immediate.
I'll tell you what, stay there. We're just going to come back to you after break with that important question with Lyndon LaRouche, because the outro music cuts out his Skype connection. We'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen. On the other side, I'm Alex Jones with INFOWAR'S.com. And, of course, we're simulcasting the radio show right now in living video color at prisonplanet.tv. Please stay with us. We are back live with Lyndon LaRouche, and he's got a long track record of accurately predicting exactly what's going on. You can, again, disagree with some of their political ideas, but their analysis has been very accurate, and I hope they're wrong. But unfortunately, we've seen the total positioning of the federalization of every state, every county, every city. We've seen a covert rollout of military and police to, quote, crack down on the American people. 3 years ago, they said they wanted to have tens of thousands of U.S. troops ready for an economic collapse by the second half of 2011. That was the Army Times. Something this big, you can always see the scripting and the setup and the buildup for it. And it is a giant attack on the Republic. And so, Lyndon LaRouche, you've got the floor, sir. Please roll with it. Why you're saying this collapse will totally implode the country, and what's the time frame?
The time frame is immediate. We are at the tail end of the thing. For example, look at it from the standpoint of the reenactment of Glass-Steagall. Glass-Steagall is now on the agenda. It's ready, going in, and with increasing support among members of the Congress for its enactment. Were it enacted today, this, and were this crazy law of Obama not in force, then we would be on the road to recovery. Because the United States system, remember, we were bankrupt when we had won the war against the British. But with the reform, which was inspired by our Treasury Secretary at the time, we adopted a constitution. And this constitution said we don't believe in a money system, we believe in a credit system. And that what we should do is, to solve the debts we had as war debts, we should be able to pay them off by issuing credit for increased production in agriculture, the development of industry, and so forth. And this worked. This was the core of our Constitution, our credit system. A credit system whose roots lie in the Massachusetts Bay Colony before it was crushed by William of Orange. And this law worked. And every time we've gone back to this principle of economy, we have prospered with the rest of the world. There's a disaster. Look at us. We went through the Civil War. It was the British organized. It almost destroyed us in terms of the cost of it. But then, because of the great unleashing of productive power in agriculture and industry, and also these structures like railways and so forth, this made us the most powerful nation in the world in economics, of any nation. We did it again several times. We did it under Franklin Roosevelt. We can do it again. The same system going back to our Constitution, our federal Constitution, which is based on the principle of credit rather than money.
All right, sir, can you quantify that? For those that don't understand, since 1913, we went off the American system and allowed private banking families to be paid interest for the government to have the right to have a currency, when currency is only a symbol of exchange and is tied to the overall productivity of the country. And I remember reading the quotes by the big banking families of Europe, the Rothschilds and others. It was in British newspapers. I've read the editorials saying, if this American system spreads, our global empire is going to die. And so that's why they tried to break the country up under Jackson, against Jackson. They tried to break it up during the Civil War. I mean, this was a public debate. This was talked about all over the world, and we've forgotten history, so we're reliving it. And a great example of this is Time Magazine says, don't worry, they're going to bulldoze most of the foreclosed houses. They've bulldozed tens of thousands. Now they want to bulldoze hundreds of thousands to jack up prices by destroying productivity and infrastructure. I mean, that is the monetary system, correct?
Well, that's right. And this is what you're looking at, what happened to the auto industry, what happened to the agricultural system, the fact we're not now producing enough food to meet the requirements of our people next year, the fact that the destitution of most of our people, even most of the people who invest, who have money, they invest in Wall Street because they have no other thing to invest in. GE's gone. All our industries have shot. We no longer are a viable economy. We don't produce enough physically to meet our actual needs. We could, on a dime, and I know exactly how to do this, we could turn this on a dime and we could become a prosperous nation again within a couple of years. We have the choice. These guys who represent a foreign interest centered in London are out to destroy us because we're the greatest danger that exists for them. But therefore, we need patriots. Look at the citizens out there. They're turning against both parties. They hate both parties. They hate the leadership of both parties. But they're not doing anything. Why? They hate the parties. They hate the government. And they have every damn good reason to do that.
Well,
our job is to be patriots.
Okay, so from your research, you're saying this is going to accelerate the implosion. They've been denying we're in a depression. Now they're basically admitting it. We've put up the quotes there where they say if we don't basically do whatever they say, we're going to have a depression, but we're already in one. What is the globalist / British? What is this New World Order, which is really the old world order model? What are they planning? Why do they want to do this? Why do they want to have a global corporate takeover of every sovereign nation and fully bankrupt it and destroy the society? I mean, anybody who thinks that they're done, think again. They're only accelerating their carbon taxes. They're only, the head of the Economic Council at the White House is moving General Electric's X-ray division to China. General Motors bailout, billions of dollars to move our plants overseas. I mean, it is flagrant treason, economic sabotage on steroids. It's so naked.
Yeah, but look at the very fact. Look at our world production. What's the policy of the reigning political forces inside Europe and inside the United States today? Their policy is not only zero growth, zero population growth. Their policy today is to reduce the world's population to 1 billion people. That is the officially stated policy of the British Empire. It's a stated policy of many of the environmentalists. It's a stated policy of many others. This is what is happening to us. And we have to look at that fact. Look at the American people. Look at what they have now and what they had, say, 2 years ago. Look at what they had under John F. Kennedy. Look what they lost when his brother was also assassinated. They got their own way. They got a useless war in Indochina, which weakened us and destroyed us by killing Kennedy because he was opposed to that war. They killed his brother, who was about to become nominated the presidential candidate for the Democratic Party, because he represented the same thing. We have to look at the physical reality, because economy is nothing but a correlative of physical reality. And that's what we're losing.
And the global banking cartel, they are literally parasites. They are waging war against the real economy because at any time, the unlimited cornucopia, the engine of liberty, can be turned loose and will overthrow them. But as Thomas Jefferson said, if you ever let private banks control the issuance of currency and credit, your children will wake up homeless on the continent their forefathers conquered.
At this time, it's worse. This is worse than anything our predecessors have ever imagined. The attempt to take a population in the order of 7 billion people on this planet and to reduce it to 1 and do it in a fast order, which is what is being done now, is the greatest crime against humanity imaginable. As a matter of fact, this is the one kind of policy pushed by President Obama which could cause the ultimate extinction of the human species, because we're getting into a condition in the galaxy, which we're a part of a new kill ratio of species, like the killing of the dinosaurs. We as human beings are capable of developing the means to defend our population against such catastrophes.
By the way, you were the first guy, I actually heard the claim years ago, went and looked it up, it's true. You're the first person on record to call for some type of planetary asteroid defense, and then what, out of that, then the plan for SDI?
Yeah, sure, that was my baby. What happened is I made the proposal in 1977 on the basis of my discussion with some leading people in the community, in the military and other circles. Our point was that a world war fought with the kinds of weapons which we in the Soviet Union were developing at that time would have caused a virtual extermination of the human species. So therefore, the question was how to get a negotiation, particularly with the Soviet Union, under which we could control things so this wouldn't happen. So I came up with this thing and pushed it, and I found a number of people in the United States in key positions of the old OSS crowd as well, who came around to my support. Then I got support for, I had the leading military forces in Germany, the retired military force, senior ones, in France, in Italy, and other countries. I had leading and also a whole section of the Soviet Union, which agreed that I was right.
By the way, folks, what he's talking about is even in the Washington Post. Lyndon LaRouche really used to land at the CIA base in Langley in his helicopter to go brief him. And then, of course, Bush, George W., Herbert Walker got jealous and set him up and put him in jail. Just incredible. But, I mean, you're here saying, because I've noticed in the news, they're saying, well, they're agreeing to give it to a blue ribbon committee and let the president kind of have the authority. And they've had Mitch McConnell from Kentucky spin it that, well, like he said 2 weeks ago, we'll just let the president do this. Well, Congress can't hand the power of the purse over to the president or some committee. I mean, it's not their power to give up, just like Congress couldn't treasonously give their power up to, say, the Chinese if they wanted to, or the Venezuelans. I mean, this really is treason, and they just do it out in the open.
Of course it's treason. It's absolute treason. They know what they're doing, but they're part of a faction that thinks that they're going to prosper. And they're the first ones that are going to go under the axe when it happens. And unfortunately, a lot of other decent citizens who are now starving to death virtually are also in the axe. My commitment is to my American people.
Well, let me say this, Lyndon, and then I want to hear some more from you and go to some calls. We appreciate all your time, and hopefully, because we had a few breakups on the connection, stay a little bit in the next hour so we can take more calls. But I know you're very busy today. Why would what's left of the ruling class that isn't part of the British aristocracy and the Rothschilds and Rockefellers, who have always been deeply in bed together to the point of where the Astors and others even took on affected British accents, as you know, 60, 70 years ago, it was the big fad on the East Coast. I mean, and we're not blaming the British people, we're blaming that imperial system that controls it. Why would what's left of independent wealth and others, and even the structure, allow this to be done? Because it does create great instability. It endangers the ruling class, for my research, even more. I mean, this is a snake eating itself. When they know the derivatives are 1.5 quadrillion and growing conservatively, it's impossible to ever pay off. You've got to write it off. Why are they going to feed everything into this vortex? I mean, at a subconscious level, is it just that these psychopaths like to destroy things, that they like to play God?
I would say psychopaths is an admissible term, but I would say sociopath is more accurate. We have a class which we've known in European experience, for example, called the oligarchical principle. The Babylon was the oligarchical principle. We had the Roman Empire. We had the Byzantine Empire. We had the so-called Crusader system. Then we had the new British system, the new system. And these things were all based on what's called the oligarchical principle.